So I want to welcome Stephanie Lind today. Stephanie is the founder of Elohi, and this is part of our Women's History Month focus on being sure that we highlight really successful women in our industry who are at the highest levels. So Stephanie, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks for asking me to be here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to dig right in and just have you tell us a bit about your company.
So I founded my company, gosh, it'll be 11 years ago in February, after spending 25 years in the food and beverage industry. So I crossed retail, industrial or ingredient, and food service. And in 2014, found myself as a VP and at a big company. And I just think I finally had the epiphany that it wasn't that I wasn't cut out for big companies. I wasn't hitting the glass ceiling, but I was hitting concrete walls. So I founded my company to give me an opportunity to sell into the channel to work the way that my brain works and the way that I felt like a lot of the emerging brands in particular weren't being serviced. And it has been, boy, has it been a ride. But what a lot of people may not know is that I don't just own Elohi, but I have two other businesses that I've started in the last year as I've thought about how technology impacts the way that we work today and the way that we're going to work tomorrow, particularly as our generation moves out of the workforce and the new generation works in, both buying and selling. So I have one that we're starting to talk about now, which is strictly a food service CRM for small companies that need to be able to track their information, but aren't quite sure how to set it up for food service because nothing out of the box works. And the other one is a true tech solution, and that's in stealth. But for Elohi, we pivot every kind of year to 2 years, but hard pivot every 2 years, and sort of small pivots every anywhere from 4 to 6 months, simply because that's the nature of business and it's the nature of our industry. We talk about ourselves as sales and marketing strategy plus execution for food service. We are at this point a completely woman-run, woman-owned, and woman-staffed business. That wasn't on purpose. It's just I was able to find really great people, and they were all women. Um, and what we do is really, it doesn't matter the size of the company. We talk a lot about innovation, but if you're struggling to launch and scale in the channel and you want experts to come in and help you do the work, we're not just going to throw a pretty deck at you. We're also not a broker. We're not just going to, show up and try to work your product with 30 lines. And I'm not saying that brokers don't have a place, they do, but especially for new products, legacy teams can't and sometimes won't do what needs to be done to go sell a new product. And we've launched products for ginormous companies and for those that like didn't even have a product yet. So
Wow.
I hope that's clear. A lot of people are like, we're not quite sure what you do. And a little bit that's by design because we approach every client as like, what do you need? What can you afford? Where are you on your journey? And then how do we plug in?
So do all three of those companies sit under Alohi and do they work together?
So the short answer is no and yes. So the CRM is a wholly owned subsidiary of Elohi. So I moved to Pennsylvania about 3 years ago, Erie, Pennsylvania, which has a really cool tech and innovation system coming up. So that one will be part of Elohi because, again, it's what we've been using for 8 years, but we've pulled it apart and put it back together so it doesn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles we use because that can be overwhelming, but it has the potential to be customized for people beyond that. The other one is a completely separate business and it's all tech and it's all about enabling lean teams, regardless of the kind of longevity of your company, what you sell, food, packaging. Like I've got some tech companies, some service companies that sell into the channel that are in the pilot mode right now. So that one we're not quite ready to launch, but wow, is it cool.
Very neat. So
Mhm.
I've got to ask you, what
Mhm.
gave you the courage to start your own business?
I- You know, um, I don't know if it was courage. I mean, I guess it looks that way looking back. It was more a case of, I was 44. I was spectacularly fired. from a company that frankly shouldn't have hired me and I should not have gone to work there. Um, and I was interviewing, I got a couple of job offers, and I remember sitting in a hotel room in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No offense to people from Oklahoma, but I had moved a couple of times to for jobs and for the salary and the title and all the things that they tell you are what success is supposed to look like. And my husband at the time sent me a dozen roses to my hotel room as a good luck. And they were there when I came back from the interview. And I called and I said, oh, like, that's the sweetest thing. I really appreciate it, but there's no way that I can take this job. And I just can't go back to work um, I can't go back to work the way I've been working. And in retrospect, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 52. So this was what, 8 years later. And in retrospect, the places where I had thrived were places where I was able to do what I do best, which is create relationships both across an organization and outside an organization. Um, but do it in a way like if you let me sell the way I can sell, it's magic. Like I'm really freaking good. But if you're going to put me in the confines of a box and not necessarily being honest with the customer, having to sandbag or totally make up numbers because somebody somewhere's promised an executive a number, uh, I couldn't do it anymore. And and I really should have been working for smaller companies or owning my own business for a lot longer than I did. But it was at the time it was really more of a statement to myself that this isn't working for me. And I'm not willing to move again to a place I probably won't want to be living if in 2 years this isn't a good fit, which already I knew it wasn't a good fit. And so I made the decision and it took probably, I was in November of 14. It probably took me about 4 or 5 months to really convince my now ex-husband, who was very risk averse, that this is what I had to do because I was the main breadwinner for the family.
Well, that definitely sounds very much like courage. So we're going to call it that.
Okay.
And it also sounds like a really pivotal moment or time frame
Mhm.
that drove that decision. And third, it sounds like you chose you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
love,
had
love all
to.
three of those for sure, for sure.
Well, a couple of
So,
months before I got fired, they took me to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack.
oh my gosh.
And again, I was 44, and the ER guy was like, "Well, it's not good news, not a heart attack, but bad news. Whatever it is you got going on, like you can't be doing this anymore because it's stress. You're not sleeping, you're not eating well. So my body and my mind were giving me all the signals I needed to take care of myself. I just finally got to a place where I listened.
You have to listen for
Mhm.
sure. What's been the biggest surprise or biggest challenge?
Of owning my own business or just
Yes.
career in general.
No, owning your own business.
Uh, it is that, gosh, there's so many. I think the first one is that you will never be able to do all the things and grow your business. So you have to decide when you start your business, and sometimes it decides for you over time, but you have to decide at some point, do I want to scale this and like really create a business, or do I want to be a one woman show and take a client here and a client there and there's nothing wrong with either, but you have to decide what it is you want to do. I didn't really decide to create a business. I thought I was just going to create like a consulting thing. Um, but once you do make that decision either way, again, you got to make sure that the people around you are prepared as well. Because my biggest challenge, frankly, over the first 8 years of the company, and it wasn't that my ex-husband wasn't supportive, he just had a very different risk profile than me, right? And a very different, like our relationship with money was different. And when you're a business owner, I don't care what business it is, but especially if it's a small business and it's really kind of you leading the charge, and having the financial responsibility and the legal responsibility, you got to make sure that your family is coming along for the ride in a way that's productive. Because
Yeah.
I have a lot of people call me all the time, like people tell me I should be a consultant, or, I got laid off and I can't find a job, so maybe I'll consult. And, even if what they said, it was like, I'm going to go buy a laundromat, which by the way is a really good business to own, um, for anybody looking to do something on their own. It it's not just about you. You're impacting everyone around you. And if they have a different relationship with money, or I've talked to entrepreneurs who have, their spouse is also a business owner. So, like, how are you going to manage that? You have to make sure that people around you are supportive because it is already hard enough to do what you're going to have to do as a small business owner, which is frankly everything.
I feel like the next question I was going to ask you, you just answered, but I want to make sure it's still the same answer.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my next question was going to be like, what would you say or what advice would you give to somebody thinking about jumping in? But that sounds very much like what you just answered. Anything else to add to that?
Well, so when people call and say they want to be a consultant, i.e., start a business, they don't say they want to start a business. They say, I think I'm going to be a consultant. And to which my first question is, you realize you're starting a business, right? So you're going to have legal obligations and you're going to have tax obligations that this isn't just like, I'm going to get a check and it's all going to be great. So that is interesting to see whose eyes sort of open for that one. And then the second question I ask is, can you go without a paycheck for 6 months and no health insurance? And it's less about the fact, like, can you financially handle it? It's more about do you have the grit to sit here and look me in the eye and say, sure, no problem. And if they hesitate at all, then my next question is going to be whoever it is, whether it's you, spouse, children, whatever, that is going to make that an uncomfortable yes, you better talk to them first. And the other thing I will ask them is, are you okay with being lonely? Because the other thing about running a business, like owning a business, it's not the same as being a VP at a big company because you're not responsible for the taxes getting paid. And if you get sued, what attorney you're going to use. Like that all comes with the title, especially at a big company. But that's a lot of pressure. And again, you're going to learn things. Like I came out of blue chip companies where I got a great education, like selling fountain for Pepsi was mind blowing in terms of understanding financials and legal because I was doing both. So that was a great lesson for me. But boy, what did I learn about, and I managed teams. So, I had a pretty good HR primer, but you own your own business and things come at you and you're like, is this a big deal or not a big deal? Should I pay an attorney or not pay an attorney? So you just, again, you have to really be honest with yourself about what you can really tolerate. And if you don't like chaos and you don't like change and you don't like uncertainty, or you have people around you who are your support system that aren't going to be supportive, it's not that you can't do it, but it's going to be a tough road.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, look, we're coming up on time, so I just want to ask you any other, I know, can you believe how fast it goes?
No.
Um, any other thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I think a couple of things. One is I would tell you, I can't imagine doing anything else. And there are a lot of people in food service getting laid off or are retiring, and they still want to work. And, again, I'm going to be 56 in a couple of weeks. And now I understand my mother. She worked until she was 72. And by the way, the last 10 years, she worked for me. Um, and I really, for those of you who are under 40 and are starting to get promoted into management roles, understand that for the most part, we still have a lot to give. And I look back on my career and where I dealt with people who were in their 50s. I remember a layoff at Nabisco in 1996, I think, and a DSM that got let go that was in his 50s. And he was fine financially, but there's a lot of experience and wisdom there that you can tap into. And I'd say that most of us really actually just want to be of use. So, try to keep that in mind. For those of us of a certain age, if you get laid off, and you're struggling to find a job, I'm just going to tell you like it is. If you're over 50, particularly if you're over 50 and a woman, it's going to be tough. It just is. So, again, just get prepared now so that when it happens, it's going to be a shock. No matter what, it's going to suck. But figure out now what else you could do that may
Right.
have nothing to do with food service or is sort of ancillary to food service.
Right, right. Well, listen, I just want to close by saying a couple of things. Stephanie Lind is a FWA alumni board member and
Yay.
helped set the foundation for Food Service Women's Alliance. So we're greatly in debt to her. I'm also personally in debt to her because she was the one who looked me in the eye and said, "You need to start your own company." And I did that almost 4 years ago. So
Mhm. It goes
gratitude,
fast.
gratitude to
Mhm.
you because this has been my favorite chapter of my career. And a
Yeah.
lot of that you're really responsible for. So
Well,
thank you.
yay me.
I know, right?
Balloons, confetti.
Thanks for agreeing to bring your story and your inspiration to the whole food service industry.
Thanks for having me.